Oliver quietly put his heavy travelling bag by the door. Wanting to surprise his wife, he returned home without warning after working on the oil rig for 2 months. Before meeting his wife, whom he had not seen for so long, he bought her favourite white roses and excitedly anticipated walking into the house and surprising her with his sudden return. Oliver quietly took off his jacket in the hallway as suddenly he heard his mother-in-law's voice coming from the kitchen. "I have told you before that you deserve more. It's time to say goodbye and put an end to this. You've suffered long enough with him. That's enough already. You have finally made the right decision. Let him look for a fool who will keep quiet. Believe my experience in life. Either you will make up your mind or you will continue to suffer." Oliver was shocked by what he had heard. It seemed to him that the ground had slipped from under his feet at the moment when his wife's mother Miranda said that Teresa had suffered enough with him and persuaded his daughter to leave him. The stunned man quickly put his shoes on, grabbed the travelling bag left on the doorstep, and walked out quietly, carefully closing the door behind him. Oliver could not comprehend what he had just heard. He and his mother-in-law always had a good, warm relationship, and the fact that she considered him unworthy of Teresa shook the man to his core. Apparently, Teresa had already made up her mind. Oliver loved his wife with a selfless love, but if Teresa was unhappy and tormented with him, he would have to let his beloved woman go and cut her out of his life. Oliver stopped at his close friend. He spent a sleepless night recalling the words he had heard in his own home. The only dignified way out of this situation, the man considered, was the breakup of his relationship on his initiative. And so he did. Oliver wrote his wife a letter in which he admitted that he had found another woman and would not return to her. He also said goodbye to her and wished her happiness. After sending the letter, he, with a broken and devastated heart, went away, having decided that there was nothing more for him to do in his native city. After his arrival in the capital, Oliver changed his phone number, deleted all the photos of his wife, to forget about the past and start life with a clean slate. He got a job as a bus driver and rented a small apartment. In order not to think about what had happened, the man immersed himself in his work. Meanwhile, Teresa, who was anxiously awaiting her husband's return from his shift, was shocked by the letter she received. Hoping she had misread it, the woman reread it over and over again, shedding bitter tears. When Miranda arrived at her daughter's house early in the morning, she found her sitting on the floor, sobbing desperately. The woman gasped, shuddered, and ran over to her crying daughter. "Teresa, what happened to you? Did you fall? Are you in pain?" she questioned, deciding that something had happened to the unborn child. Teresa silently held out Oliver's letter. "Why has he done this to me? He found someone for himself while he was working in another town, and he decided to forget about me. How am I supposed to go on living? And my baby? Why should the baby grow up without a father? We have dreamed of this pregnancy for so long. Now it has come, but there is no sense of life." "Don't say that," whispered Miranda affectionately. "Don't be angry with God. You'll be a mother soon. That's what you should think about, instead of suffering. Time will heal everything, my dear. Your pain will pass. We will raise the child with you. Don't worry. I will help you in everything." After her mother's words, Teresa calmed down a little and stopped sobbing. As Miranda said, time really healed the young woman's wounds. She did not stop loving her husband, but she hid her feelings for him deep in her heart. Teresa still believed that one day the door of her house would open and Oliver would appear on the threshold. But most of the time her thoughts were occupied with the baby she was carrying under her heart. Soon, pleasant worries filled Teresa's life, relieving her of mental torment. In due time, Teresa gave birth to a healthy son who was an exact copy of his father. She named him Foster. Foster grew up to be a nimble, quick-witted child, and the days flew by even faster with him. When he was 3 years old, Teresa decided to go with the boy to the capital and visit a close friend, Ruby. A few days after her arrival, Teresa wanted to show Foster the zoo. Since it was not far from the house where Ruby lived, the woman decided to take the bus. Surprisingly, the bus driver turned out to be Oliver. She looked at him in confusion until she finally came to her senses. "Oliver, is that you?" Oliver, forgetting about his work, stared at Teresa for a while and then finally whispered, "Hello, Teresa." He immediately turned his attention to the blonde boy, whom Teresa was holding by the hand, and thought with sorrow that she had already managed to give birth to a child by another man. The acute pain of his soul, which had not been felt for a long time, was again in Oliver's soul, and he became visibly gloomy. "Mummy, who is this, mister?" asked Foster, looking at his mother. "This mister is your daddy," replied Teresa, so that Oliver could hear, and then silently got her son off the bus. Oliver thought he had misheard her. He looked after the woman and her child, leaving in a confused manner, and realized that he could not let her go now, not having understood what had happened. He apologized to the passengers and jumped out of the bus and ran after his wife and son. He grabbed Teresa's arm abruptly and stopped her. "Tell me, is it true?" asked the man, practically out of breath. "Is he really my son?" Teresa nodded affirmatively and said in an excited, trembling voice, "I have never deceived you, and now I'm telling you the truth. But you have to go. The whole bus is waiting for you." Oliver looked at the bus and realized that now was not the best time and place to figure things out. "Yes, I have to go, but I'll be waiting for you at this spot tonight at 9 o'clock. Oliver took one last look at the child and Teresa and returned to the bus. At the zoo, the woman's thoughts were occupied only by her husband and his last words. She had no regrets about telling the truth and was surprised at Oliver's reaction. Did he really think she could have had a child that age from another man? Doubts and hesitations tormented her soul and mind, stubbornly telling her to leave the past and live in the present without her ex-husband. But her heart persistently asked to meet Oliver once more and at least talk to him. In the end, her heart overcame her mind, and leaving Foster with Ruby, Teresa went to meet Oliver. Her hands were shaking with excitement, and her heart was beating fast. Her whole body was trembling in her chest, and she was eager to look into the eyes of the man she still loved in spite of everything. Oliver was standing at the bus stop, wearing a thin jacket and holding an umbrella in his hand. The sky was gloomy and foggy. No sooner had Teresa come to the bus stop than it started to rain. Oliver ran up to Teresa with opened umbrella and hurriedly hid her from the rain. "Shall we go in?" the man suggested, pointing to a small cafe near the bus stop. Teresa nodded in agreement. 10 minutes later, they were sitting at a cozy table, drinking hot tea. The tense silence was broken by Oliver. "That boy, is he really my son?" "I have told you today that he is," interrupted him Teresa. "When you left me, I was pregnant. I was looking forward to your return to share this happiness with you, and you didn't even dare look into my eyes and say what you had written then. I have been home. I have heard everything." "What do you mean? And what have you heard? I don't understand anything," asked Teresa. "I came home early because I was going to surprise you. I even bought you your favourite flowers. Like a fool, I thought I was loved and waited for. I was sure of it until I heard your conversation. My dear mother-in-law was trying hard to persuade you to leave me and find a better match. And you yourself didn't mind and didn't argue with your mother when she was blaming me for tormenting you. I realized that when I came back, you would have put me in front of the fact that you didn't need me. So I turned around and left, and then I wrote a letter saying that I had found another woman, even though it wasn't true. In fact, I've always been faithful to you." Teresa froze, listening to her husband's story. She wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. At the time, she and her mother weren't discussing Oliver, but Teresa's boss, who kept the woman busy and made her work for two. Miranda urged her daughter to quit her thankless job and find a quieter place for herself. "How wrong you had been," the woman exclaimed. "I wasn't going to leave you. I was going to leave my job. You remember my boss, don't you? I used to complain about him to you. He had lost his conscience at all. He was making me do other people's jobs. He was always picking on me and belittling my virtues. Plus he was paying me a penny. All this practically drove me to a nervous breakdown. Since my condition, my mother demanded that I quit my job. That was it. I have always loved you now, and will continue to love you. But you decided everything for us, without giving us the slightest opportunity to explain ourselves. I would have told you about all this, but you left me." The woman was so hurt by that memory that after wiping away her tears, she got up and was about to leave. But Oliver stopped her by grabbing her hand hastily. He pulled her to him and kissed her. From that moment on, the couple never parted again. They were raising their son in love and harmony, and there were no more such fatal misunderstandings in their relationship.